The Ballad of Session 1, or the breaking of Wurgar's chains. Gather close and fill your cups, for this is where it starts. Not with crowns or prophecy, but iron around their hearts. Bound and march toward Wurgar's walls, that fortress built on grief, where the disciples rule with fists and suffering is belief. A prisoner collapsed beneath a cage of steel and weight. His leg shattered, screams swallowed. The disciples named his fate, and Silas stepped forward from the line and took the burden on. For this, the others were spared. It was not mercy in the air, it was a lesson, and Silas gave it first. The chains of Wurgar held them once, and only once. A blade in the dark, a staff returned, a soul who did not flinch. Chaos turned his head and almost saw them in the black, and every step they took in there was one they can't take back. The Trunks Arena wanted blood, and blood was duly spent. Their first fight bought them favor and a meal of some dissent. Their second fight bought anarchy, a riot wall to wall. The underground fights died that night. The disciples watched them all, tightened grip, sharpened eyes. The heat began to grow, but heat is something this particular band already know. They had been in Wurgar for approximately 5 minutes. They had already ended an institution. The impalers took the prisoners up into the winged dark. Raj Kaur, alone and unarmed, had the wisdom to remark that this was not the moment. So he left and then returned, armed and ready, which is the one lesson quickly learned. One impaler fell, one fled into the screaming night, and Adeline found a rapier in the rubble, sitting right as though fate had placed it there for her hand alone to take, which is the sort of thing that happens to people the world has plans for. The chains of Wurgar held them once, and only once. A blade in the dark, a staff returned, a soul who did not flinch. Chaos turned his head and almost saw them in the black, and every step they took in there was one they can't take back. Not all battles live in light, the smugglers knew this well. Moving through the shadows, keeping secrets from the spell of disciples' watchful eyes, but one among the captives fed the guards information, which meant someone had to be dead. Adeline was given the choice and did not hesitate. A task given, a task completed, and the informant's fate was settled in the dark without a word of doubt or cost. One must wonder if the price of trust weighs heavier than the blade that delivers it. Adeline has not said. Then in the dead of night they crept like whispers through the walls, slipping through the iron labyrinth, scrutinizing halls, reclaiming piece by stolen piece the fragments of their worth, and Huss's staff among them, pulled from Wurgar's hoarded earth. What should have been a quiet exit opened into dread, for there stood chaos, and before him stood the soon-to-be dead. He did not speak, he simply gestured. Souls rose pale and thin, riding, screaming, vanishing into him. The party watched from shadow, helpless, knowing chaos turned his head, as if sensing something, then moved on. For now, with the staff returned, Husis kept his word and more beside. Talismans of feather, runes of ink etched deep inside. Protection for the breaking point, a boon for darkest need. All but Rajkor accepted, which is very on brand indeed. Trust not the talisman or ink, the old wise man then said, but trust in yourselves, which is the kind of thing said to the brave or the dead. And every step toward freedom made the disciples' gaze more keen. Escape was inevitable, so was the battle to claim it. This is where it started. A man lifting another man's cage, a blade chosen without hesitation, a soul ripper who almost looked their way. It began in chains, it will not end in them. The chains of Wurgar held them once, and only once. A blade in the dark, a staff returned a soul who did not flinch. Chaos turned his head and moved on through the black, and every step they took in there was one they can't take back. And the world has not been quite the same since then. And the world has not been quite the same since then.